front of the Grand Hotel, its golden lights illuminating the lavish entrance. My heart pounded in my chest, but I held my head high. Tonight was my brother's wedding, a day meant for joy and celebration, but for me, it was an unspoken battlefield. The moment I approached the entrance, I noticed the judgmental stares slicing through me like daggers. Women in glittering gowns whispered behind their manicured hands. Men in tailored suits exchanged knowing glances. My parents stood at the doorway, their expressions hard as stone. And then it happened. "You are nothing but a shame to us," my mother hissed, loud enough for everyone to hear. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My father's lips curled in disgust. "How dare you show your face here? After all the disgrace you've brought upon this family? Get out." My throat tightened. My chest burned. I swallowed the lump forming in my throat, forcing myself to stand tall. "I came to celebrate my brother's big day." "You are not welcome," my mother spat, her voice venomous. Before I could even process it, security appeared. Strong hands grabbed my arm, dragging me backward. People didn't intervene, they watched. Some with pity, others with amusement. And just like that, I was thrown out of my own brother's wedding. The heavy doors slammed shut behind me. The bitter chill of the night seeped through my thin dress, but nothing was colder than the humiliation I felt at that moment. I clenched my fists. They thought I was nothing. They thought I would always be beneath them. They would regret this. I stood outside that Grand Hotel, the laughter and music from the wedding piercing through me. I could almost hear the toasts, the speeches, the celebration. I was denied. My legs felt weak, but I refused to collapse. I hailed another cab, my voice barely steady as I gave the driver my address. The ride back was silent. No tears. No outbursts. Just the weight of years of mistreatment pressing down on my chest. I lived in a tiny apartment, the kind my parents sneered at. They had cut me off years ago for choosing to walk my own path. They wanted perfection. I was not their version of it. I curled up on my worn-out couch, staring at the ceiling. The pain was unbearable, but pain was fuel, and I would use every ounce of it to build something they never imagined. The next morning, I woke up with a fire in my chest. No more waiting. No more hoping. It was time to act. For years, I had been struggling, working multiple jobs, scraping by, fighting to build a name for myself in the business world. I had faced rejections, betrayals, failures. But I never stopped. I pulled out my laptop, my hands steady. There was a deal in the works, a major investment I had been negotiating for months. It was risky, but I had everything to gain and nothing left to lose. I spent the next few weeks working tirelessly, using every connection, every ounce of knowledge, every bit of grit I had left. And then one day it happened. The deal went through. Not just a small success, a life-changing, table-turning, earth-shattering win. I wasn't just making money. I was stepping into a league my parents never thought I could reach. Months passed. My wealth grew. My power solidified. And then, as if fate had orchestrated it perfectly, I received an invitation. Another grand family gathering. I smirked at the golden invitation, turning it in my hands. This time, I wouldn't be the one standing outside. The night of the event, I arrived fashionably late. But I didn't just arrive, I made an entrance. The Rolls-Royce glided through the opulent venue, and as I stepped out, silence fell over the crowd. The same people who once sneered at me now gawked in disbelief. My father, my mother, my brother, they all froze. I walked in, every step deliberate, my confidence unshakable. And when I reached them, I smiled. "Oh, you didn't expect me?" I said smoothly, my voice carrying through the room. My mother's face went pale. My father looked like he had swallowed nails. The tables had turned, and I was just getting started. A murmur spread through the grand hall like wildfire. The clinking of glasses halted. Conversations ceased. All eyes were on me. I took my time, letting them absorb the shock, the disbelief, the reality that I was no longer the broken girl they had discarded like an old, unwanted relic. My father's jaw clenched, so tight I thought it might shatter. My mother's fingers trembled against the stem of her wine glass. And my dear brother. He looked anywhere but at me, his discomfort evident in the way he shifted on his feet. What are you doing here? My mother's voice was sharp, cutting through the thick silence. I tilted my head, feigning innocence.
Why?
I was invited. You wouldn't want to be rude, would you? That would be a shame, considering your obsession with appearances.
Gasps.
A few muffled chuckles from distant relatives who had always remained silent spectators in my family's drama. My father stepped forward, his face an unreadable mask of rage. You have no place here. I don't care if you show up in a Rolls-Royce or a private jet. You are not part of this family anymore. I let out a soft, humorless laugh. Oh, Dad, that's where you're mistaken. I was never part of your family. I was just a piece in your perfect picture. And when I refused to fit in, you cut me out. But guess what? I built my own frame. The tension thickened. My father's lips thinned, but I wasn't done. I turned to my brother, who still hadn't spoken a word. Congratulations on your marriage, by the way, I said, flashing him a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. I hope she knows what she signed up for. A flicker of something passed across his face. Guilt? Shame? It didn't matter anymore. I turned my back on them, walking toward the bar, my designer heels clicking against the marble floor. Enjoy the party. It's a beautiful venue. Almost as beautiful as the one I just purchased downtown. I tossed the words over my shoulder. I didn't need to look back to know they were shocked beyond belief. I leaned against the bar, ordering a glass of champagne, feeling the weight of 100 stares drilling into my back. They were talking about me. Some whispered in hushed voices, barely concealing their shock. Others weren't as subtle. Is that really her? She looks different. Did you see her car? My God, I thought she was struggling. Did she just say she bought a venue? There's no way. I smirked into my glass, letting the sweet liquid coat my tongue. People loved a downfall, but they loved to come back even more. And I had given them one they would never forget. That's when someone approached me. I almost didn't recognize you, came a soft voice. I turned, surprised to see my cousin Olivia. Unlike the rest of my family, Olivia had never been cruel. She had never been particularly warm either, but she had never joined in the cruelty. Well, people change, I said smoothly, taking another sip. Her eyes flickered toward my parents, who were still frozen in place, trying to regain their dignity. Then back to me. I knew they were harsh to you, but I didn't know they threw you out like that, she admitted, shifting uncomfortably. I raised an eyebrow. And yet, you never said a word. She flinched. I was scared. They control everything. They could have cut me off too. I studied her for a moment. The fear in her voice wasn't fake. But it didn't matter anymore. Well, you don't have to be scared of them anymore, I said, leaning in slightly. Because in case you haven't realized, I outrank them now. Her eyes widened slightly, realization dawning. Yes, my parents had wealth, but I had power, and they were just beginning to understand what that meant. I barely had time to finish my drink before my father stormed toward me, his rage barely contained beneath a cold, rigid mask. You think this is funny? Walking in here, flaunting your wealth like some. He struggled for the right insult. I tilted my head unfazed. Like some what, Dad? Someone successful? Someone who made it without your approval. His nostrils flared. You're embarrassing yourself. I chuckled, setting my glass down. Oh no. You embarrassed yourself the day you threw me out in front of everyone. Remember that? I do. A pin-drop silence spread around us as guests pretended not to listen, but they were. Oh, they definitely were. My mother appeared beside him, her expression one of barely contained panic. Enough. This is not the place for this discussion. Oh, but it is, I said, tilting my head. Because you made my disgrace public. Why shouldn't my return be public too? I saw it then. The shift. The realization. They had lost control. They had spent their whole lives ensuring I was beneath them. And now, for the first time, they were scrambling to keep up. What do you want? My father finally said, voice tight. I laughed softly, shaking my head. Want?
From you?
Nothing. I leaned in, lowering my voice, so only they could hear. Because unlike you, I don't need to take anything from someone else to be powerful. I built my own empire. One you can't touch. One you can't ruin. And one day, when you come knocking for help, because you will, I hope you remember how you threw me away like garbage. My father's face drained of color. My mother's lips parted as if to speak, but no words came out. And then I turned my back on them, once and for all. This time, I was the one walking away. And it was glorious. I walked away from my parents, my heels clicking against the marble floor with the confidence they had once stripped from me. Each step felt like a reclaiming of everything they had stolen, my dignity, my worth, my place in the world. But I wasn't here just to prove a point. I was here to make sure they understood that I was no longer under their control. The whispers followed me like a storm cloud as I moved through the grand hall, champagne glass still in hand. The luxurious scent of fresh flowers mixed with expensive perfume filled the air, but all I could smell was victory. I felt a presence behind me before I even turned. You really made an entrance, didn't you? A smooth voice interrupted my thoughts. I turned, raising an eyebrow at the man standing before me. He was dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, his sharp green eyes holding something close to amusement. I recognized him immediately. Daniel Caldwell, one of the city's most influential investors. A man my father had spent years trying to impress, yet had never quite won over. And now here he was talking to me. Daniel, I greeted, offering a small, knowing smile. I wasn't expecting to see you here. He smirked. And I wasn't expecting a show, but here we are. His gaze flickered over to my parents, who were still frozen in shock near the entrance. They looked like they just swallowed glass. I chuckled.
Good.
It's about time they felt what it was like to be the ones humiliated in public. Daniel studied me for a long moment before lifting his glass. To poetic justice, then. I clinked my glass against his, taking a slow sip. My parents had spent their entire lives ensuring I was insignificant in the circles they cared about. Yet here I was, standing among the very people they had desperately sought approval from. And I wasn't just standing, I was shining. I knew my parents well enough to know they wouldn't just let this go. They might have been stunned into silence tonight, but I wasn't naive enough to believe they wouldn't retaliate. And I was right. Barely an hour later, my father cornered me near the balcony, his expression dark with fury. You think this is over? He hissed, his voice low enough that only I could hear. I took a slow sip of my champagne, unfazed. I don't think, Dad. I know. His nostrils flared. You think because you have money now you're untouchable? We made you. You wouldn't have survived a day without us. I tilted my head, feigning curiosity. Funny, considering you threw me away like garbage. If you were so essential to my survival, I should have been begging on the streets, right? His mouth opened.
Closed.
Because he knew. I had proven him wrong. He stepped closer, lowering his voice even further. You have no idea who you're messing with. I gave him a slow, knowing smile. And that's your biggest mistake. Thinking I'm still the scared girl you threw out of your life. I am not her anymore. And you don't scare me. For the first time in my life, I saw something flicker in his eyes that had never been there before.
Fear.
I expected my parents' reaction. What I didn't expect was my brother approaching me after everything. He found me near the bar, his expression unreadable. I didn't know they were going to do that, he admitted, his voice quiet. I laughed softly, shaking my head. No, but you didn't stop them either. His jaw tightened. You know how they are. If I had stood up for you, you would have lost their favor, their money, their approval. I finished for him. He didn't deny it. I sighed, suddenly feeling exhausted. I don't hate you, you know. I just don't respect you. His face fell. I hope your wife never has to choose between you and someone she loves, I said, swirling the last bit of champagne in my glass. Because if she does, I hope she chooses better than you did. I left him standing there, guilt written all over his face. I was getting ready to leave when my mother caught up with me. I expected another fight, another threat, Another attempt to tear me down. What I didn't expect was hesitation. She stood there, clutching her purse, looking at me like she wasn't sure who I had become. "You really made something of yourself," she said finally. I watched her carefully. And she swallowed hard. And I suppose I was wrong. That I hadn't expected. For the first time, I saw the cracks in her armor. She wasn't just angry anymore. She was uncertain. And that was something my mother never was. I took a deep breath. "You can hate me, resent me, ignore me, but you will never break me again. You will never have that power." Her lips parted, as if she wanted to say something else. But in the end, she didn't. And I walked away. As I stepped back into my Rolls Royce, I took one last look at the venue. This wasn't just a night of revenge. This wasn't about making them regret what they had done. This was my closure. I had walked in as the woman they underestimated. And I was walking out as the woman they could never reach again. And that, more than anything, was the greatest victory of all. As the Rolls Royce glided through the city streets, the bright lights casting a soft glow over the tinted windows, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The weight of the night sat heavy in my chest, but not in the way it used to. I wasn't broken. I wasn't defeated. I was free. The driver glanced at me through the rear-view mirror. "Straight home, miss." I hesitated. The thought of my penthouse, once my safe haven, suddenly felt suffocating. Tonight wasn't just about showing them I had made it. It was about closing a chapter of my life for good. "Not yet," I said, my voice steady. "Take me to the waterfront." The car hummed softly as it changed direction. The city blurred past in streaks of gold and silver, but my mind was sharper than ever. I had spent my whole life chasing approval, fighting for a place in a family that never wanted me. And now, I owed them nothing. For the first time, I wasn't running from them. I was walking away on my terms. The waterfront was quiet at this hour. The waves lapped gently against the docks, the soft glow of streetlights casting long shadows. I stepped out of the car, inhaling the crisp air. This place had always been my escape, back when I was struggling, back when I had nowhere to go. I had sat on these very benches, eating stale sandwiches, wondering if I would ever make it. And now, I was here in a designer gown, stepping out of a car that cost more than my parents' house. The contrast was staggering. As I walked along the edge of the water, I noticed a figure huddled near a bench. A young woman, maybe in her early 20s, clutching a thin jacket around her shoulders. Her head was down, her face hidden behind a curtain of dark hair. Something about her struck a chord deep within me. I knew that posture. I had lived that posture. I approached slowly. "Hey." She flinched, looking up, her eyes wide and wary. I don't have anything, okay? I'm not looking for trouble." Her voice was small, defensive. I smiled gently. "I'm not here to take anything from you." I glanced at her shivering form. "Do you have somewhere to go?" She hesitated. I'll be fine." I crouched down to her level. "That's not what I asked." Her eyes darted away.
"No."
I let out a slow breath, pulling off my coat and draping it over her shoulders before she could protest. "Take this." Her lips parted. I can't." "Yes, you can," I said firmly.
"And you will."
"And you're going to take this too." I reached into my purse, pulling out a business card and a few $100 bills. "Go to this address tomorrow. Tell them I sent you. They'll help you get back on your feet." Her hands trembled as she took the card. Why are you doing this?" I smiled, the first genuine smile I had given all night. Because once, someone told me I was nothing. And I believed them until I didn't. You don't have to believe them either. Tears welled in her eyes as she clutched the card to her chest. "Thank you." I nodded. "You're going to be okay. Just don't let anyone tell you otherwise." As I walked back to my car, I felt lighter than I had in years. My parents had tried to teach me that power meant crushing people beneath you. But I had learned something much more valuable. Real power is lifting others up. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. My phone was buzzing nonstop. Missed calls, messages, even emails. I frowned. rubbing the sleep from my eyes as I reached for the device. Father, we need to talk. Immediately. Mother, call me now. Brother, what the hell did you do? I blinked, then scrolled further. And then I saw it. The headline. Mysterious businesswoman steals the spotlight at high society wedding and outsmarts one of the city's most powerful families. A photo of me stepping out of my Rolls Royce was plastered across the front page. Another showed my parents' stunned faces. Someone had caught the exact moment of their humiliation, and now the whole city was reading about it. I let out a slow, satisfied exhale. I didn't have to expose them.
They had done that all by themselves.
And now they were the ones scrambling to fix their image. An hour later, my father's number popped up on my screen again. This time, I answered. Finally, he snapped the second I picked up. You need to fix this. I arched an eyebrow, leaning back against my pillows. Fix what? The media is tearing us apart. Do you have any idea what you've done? I smirked. I didn't do anything, Dad. You did this to yourself. Silence. Then, you think you're untouchable now, don't you? Not untouchable, I mused. Just out of your reach. He let out a slow, controlled breath. We can negotiate. You don't want this war. I laughed, a genuine, amused laugh. Dad, I'm not fighting a war. I'm just winning the life you tried to keep from me. His silence told me everything. For the first time in his life, my father had no control.
And he hated it.
I met them in a private lounge later that evening. They had aged overnight. The stress of the scandal, the loss of control, it was eating at them. My mother tried a softer approach. We can move past this, sweetheart. We're still family. I leaned forward, studying them. Family? Where was family when you humiliated me? When you made sure I had nothing? She swallowed hard. We made mistakes.
Yes.
You did. A beat of silence. What do you want? My father finally asked, the desperation barely masked in his voice. I smiled. Nothing. Confusion flickered in their eyes. You see, Dad, that's the difference between us. I don't need revenge. I don't need to take everything from you just because I can. I stood, straightening my dress. I just needed you to know that you never had the power you thought you did. And with that, I walked away. For the last time. The moment I stepped out of that room, I felt free. Not because of money, not because of power, but because I had walked away from them with no regrets. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their validation. I had built something far more valuable. A life that was truly mine. Weeks later, I received an update. The young woman I had helped at the waterfront? She was doing well. She had found a job. A safe place to stay. A new beginning. And in that moment I knew that was the real victory. Not money. Not revenge. But kindness.
Strength.
Freedom. I had built a life